One of the first questions atheists are asked by true believers and doubters alike is, if you don't believe in God, there's nothing to prevent you from committing crimes, is there? Without the fear of hellfire and eternal damnation, you can do anything you like, can you? And a study in 2010 concluded that 97% of Mexico's population claim to be believers, and less than the 3% to be agnostic or atheist. So, to put it in some words, the dominant religion here in Mexico is Catholicism. So, to understand more about this idea of the dominance of Catholicism, let's talk about a little bit of history. The history of the Catholic Church begins with the teachings of Jesus Christ, who lived in the first century in the province of Judea of the Roman Empire. The contemporary Catholic Church says that it is a continuation of the early Christian community established by Jesus, but many people have different ideas. Christianity spread throughout the early Roman Empire despite persecutions due to conflicts with the pagan state religion. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire, the Catholic faith competed with another derivative of Christianity, that is Arianism, for the conversion of the barbarian tribes, and Saint Benedict wrote his Rule of Saint Benedict as a practical guide for monastic community life, and his message spread throughout the monasteries in the whole Europe. At this time is where Catholicism started to gain a lot of followers. Spain's Christian history dates to the early years of the era, when the Roman Empire controlled the whole of the peninsula, and we all know how this religion became the most practiced here in Mexico. So having this information now better understand, we can now have a better idea of how the dominant religion in our country is the Catholic one. And then for a believer, it's interesting to ask questions like the ones that we ask in the beginning of the documentary, like how people that have no religion can live on a moral society, because they base their morals on what the sacred text or their God tells them to. But in the past, Greeks and Romans, whose gods and goddesses were something less than paragons of virtue, nevertheless led lives not obviously worse than those of the atheists. Moreover, pagans such as Aristotle or Marcus Aurelius, although their systems are not suitable for us today, managed to produce ethical treatises of great sophistication, a very rare type of sophistication that we can say is equal by some of the Christian moralists. Okay, so to answer to the question posted in the beginning of the video, absolutely not. The behavior of an atheist is subject to the same rules of sociology, psychology, and neurophysiology that govern the behavior of all members of our species. Religion is included. Moreover, despite protestations to the contrary, we may assert as a general rule that when religion is practiced ethical behavior, it isn't really due to their fear of hellfire and damnation, nor it is due to their hopes of heaven. Ethical behavior, regardless of who the practitioner may be, results always from the same causes and is regulated by the same forces, and has nothing to do with the presence or absence of religious belief. Plato showed long ago in his dialogue with Euthyphro that we cannot depend upon the moral fiats of a deity. Plato asked if the commandments of a god were good simply because a god had commanded them, or because the god recognized that was good and commanded the action accordingly. If something is good simply because God has commanded, anything could be considered good. There will be no way of predicting what in particular the god may desire next, and it will be entirely meaningless to assert that God is good. Bashing babies with rocks will be just likely to be good, as will the principle, love your enemies. It will appear that the goodness of the God of the Old Testament is entirely of this sort. On the other hand, atheist morals, we can say they are not absolute. They do not have a set of moral laws from an absolute God by which right and wrong are judged, but they do live in societies that have legal systems with codified set of laws. This will be the closest thing to moral absolutes for atheists. However, since the legal system changes, the morals in a society can still change and their morals along with it. At best, these codified morals we can say that are temporary absolutes. In one century, abortion is wrong. In another, it is right. So if we ask, is it right or wrong? An atheist can tell us his own opinion.
Hi, we are here with our professor of ethics, Marcel Rivera, right? Thanks for having us today on our interview for this documentary on how an atheist would have a moral life or an ethical life, right?
Of course.
So, for starters, are you an atheist?
No, I'm not.
You're not. How can you describe an atheist person? If we can get into the topic.
It's a person who denies the existence of a deity.
Oh, right.
Mhm.
I had firstly I have the idea of a person who believes that exists, but actually just don't prefer to believe.
Okay, that's a different way to say it. It's a person who doesn't believe that that a deity exists
Mm-hmm.
and prefers not to follow it. Is what you're saying?
Yeah, probably in certain manner.
But in that definition, like there could be room, or there is room for like there is a deity, but I just prefer not to
Not to trust.
to believe. So that's not an atheist to me.
No.
An atheist will
that,
be denial. Like there's no even room for no space for
For
a God
God.
to exist.
Right. Okay. And in that situation, how can we call it? Right. So
A
what
person
what
who
name?
denies.
Yeah, a person who denies. it.
Skepticist.
A skepticist. Okay.
Skepticist. Yes.
So
Skeptical.
I already get that.
Okay.
The question clear. Do you actually believe? I now may know that you actually believe in a deity or a
Deity,
God,
uh-huh.
right? So can you tell us a little bit about your religion or your religious beliefs?
Yeah, I don't personally like to talk about religion,
Right.
like per se, saying that if a religion is right or wrong. I believe that all religions lead to, say, the same essence or power or deity, however you want to call it. And in that sense, I believe all religions are right. In the practices religions follow or want people to follow, I don't think all of them are right, or I don't think all of them get it right, because some of them can abuse of some of their followers to do or practice
Some
stuff that may not be that healthy for their lives or
For themselves.
for their families. Yes.
okay.
But yes, so to answer the question, so I do believe there is a deity, and I do believe that there is a value in all religions, and all religions and all people are able and can believe in what they want. Yes.
Okay, so
In the
you're
spiritual
telling me
sense.
that you actually believe in a God or a
Mhm.
deity
Yeah,
or
you-
something supreme, right?
Yeah.
But you don't.
Not God as the Western Christian God,
Right.
to specify.
That
I think
I was
goes
trying to reach.
beyond
Yeah.
beyond what Christianism will tell
So
us.
you wouldn't call yourself a Christian or a Catholic person or
No, I will call myself a believer.
a believer.
Yeah,
Right.
believer of God, or as a not God, could be goddess, as a the deity is a better term to describe it, or divine power, or however you want to call it. That it doesn't have a human form or presence. I would say it's more like
Just like a superpower.
I don't know. I don't know how. Like you ask, how can you define a deity or God? I don't think would be possible to define.
Okay. So that takes us like a little backwards to the
Mhm.
first question, right?
Mhm.
Like the one of believing, like someone who believes in a certain deity or a God, but not actually having or preferring to be part
Yeah,
of a
like
religion.
you believe in God, but you don't follow a religion, or you are not part of a community, a spiritual community, faith community. You can call it is agnostic.
Okay.
Someone is
That's okay.
someone is believes the existence, but is not let's say deep into a religion or into a group or sect or however you want to call it.
Okay, that
Agnostic.
yeah, agnostic.
Mhm.
Okay, that gives us a whole different background.
Mhm.
So, do you think that being an atheist or someone that doesn't believe in any deity or God influences on their ethical lives? Or
You don't believe in anything, is what you're telling me?
yeah, if you don't believe,
Uh-huh.
do you think that that ideal will lead you to not following your ethical life or not having an
Yeah,
ethical life?
when I have asked that question to people, they will say they need to live an ethical life. Like, there's no way to say because I don't believe in God, I don't believe I'm gonna be punished or rewarded in eternity. But what happened to today in your daily life? So it's like what happened here in your interactions with other people are meaningful
Mm-hmm.
to you and to others. So whatever you do or not do is going to affect people around you and your family or society in general.
It will have
So
consequences.
so you need to live an ethical life somehow. So either to adhere as one of the ethical theories or to follow your own ethical theory, but at the end you need to see the consequences of your acts. Like you're not gonna just because you don't believe in God, you're not go on the street and kill people.
Right. That would take us to the path of following a morality life, or
Mhm.
right. So you already touched like the ethical theories part,
Mhm.
and I didn't have it in the script, but
Mhm.
it's pretty important. Do you think that your life is based, or you are following certain ethical theory, or like presenting just one? I mean, I don't think that it's possible right now in this year.
It's impossible. You don't think it's impossible? Or you
I think it's impossible to follow just one like nowadays.
Yeah, it's a combination of
Right.
all of them. Most people would rather follow utilitarianism or consequentialism because it's what is more into or economic and financial
Having more-
lives or lifestyle, to be more specific. To me, what as I said in class, what I like to follow is to weigh the consequences of my acts. Like, as I said, asking the question, how much am I willing to pay if I make this decision, or I decide not to follow this decision. So that's the way I try to lead my life, thinking in the consequences, like say short, mid, long-term consequences of what I'm going to do or not to do. So I think that's a way I can do it. So in a sense, it's similar to consequentialism in a sense. However, I'm looking into my actions, like looking into if what I'm doing is right or wrong,
What is
according
going
to
to
the
affect, right?
according to the cost I'm willing to pay or not.
Yeah. Okay. Well, now I know actually that you are not an atheist. At first, I thought you were an atheist, but this question is based for someone that would be an atheist. And now I know that you're not, but I would like to make it still. Do you think that science would have the answer of everything, or
One thing that science has discovered is that they don't have the answer to it.
To everything,
Science
right?
doesn't have the answer to everything. There are still some stuff that we cannot
yeah, predictable
explain
stuff?
and probably won't be able to explain.
In a way.
Like I'm not a scientist. Also, maybe science can provide you some light into many questions in life, but the questions we had 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 years ago, we still have it even with science. Like, why are we here? Where are we going? Where did I come from? So still the same questions.
Right.
Philosophical questions.
That's actually another question that I would like to make. Like, from your own opinion, for you, what do you think? Which do you think is the origin of life?
That's a good question. I think is if I believe and if I say and I sustain that that there's a deity or conception of God.
Yeah.
There must be a purpose of creating life as the way we know it, as human life. Whether that came through evolution or came through a different way, I think in the scientific way in that way. So okay, we evolved somehow, but the original life, like what happening on Earth and didn't happen in other planets. Like still, we're searching for life in different planets and galaxies. So the question is still there. So why do we have life on Earth, with exception to universe? So there are more life, intelligent life somewhere else. So it's a question that maybe we'll have for.
Won't be answered for a while. No,
Or
that's
maybe
it.
maybe it won't be answered.
That's another thing about science. Like, there is no answer for everything.
Yeah.
Yet.
Yes.
So our principal topic is about how an atheist would have or pursue a moral life and ethical life. How would you describe this? I don't know.
Yeah,
this
similar to
action?
the previous question, is again, because we live in society, whatever we do affect to other people, we need to live ethical life somehow, or we need to follow some ethics. We can be selfish, or we could be nihilist, or we could be whatever, but still we need to. We want to live in society because we receive benefit from society. We need to give back somehow. So there is giving money, or working, or teaching, or
whatever is.
Yeah, but you still need to be part of society. And in order for you to be part of society, you need to live. You must live an ethical life somehow. Otherwise, if you are selfish all the time, at the end of the day, you are gonna no friends, nobody's gonna hire you.
Yeah,
so unless you are a millionaire, you can live by your own means.
Yeah.
But if you are not, like most people are not, so you need to find your way how are you going to live in society and cope with yourself and still continue life.
Okay, so it's basically what science also said, that every action leads to an actual consequence, right?
Yeah, reaction.
Okay. This another question for an atheist point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that scientific discoveries are real, or are they just mental constructions of man? Because I mean, there is no one to telling us in the past that this means something, or it's the meaning that we are giving to the products.
But the question is scientific discoveries?
Yeah, scientific discoveries, scientific thoughts, scientific everything that is related or correlated with the topic of science or not being created of
what
God.
Science follows is a method that you can experiment and prove. So in that sense, I don't think it's like is made up by humans and saying, okay, we discover light, we discover how to create life. So, and it's not is something that is relevant, it's something that you can experiment, it's something that you can replicate. So that the method that it's as the scientific method explains, you can do it, and that's why it's science. So I don't think, to answer the question, no, I don't think it's a human creation or thoughts or perception. I think it's true. That's it.
Okay, so it's like just the thing that we discovered, and
according to the scientific method,
and according to that, we give that a name, or
we like what we discover is true. The interpretation that we can make out of it, or the use or the application of it, it could be different. But if I discover light's there, so it's like there's no way to say it's a perception. It's something that we are creating. Is just there. So it's like you can replicate it and do it again. So that's just to say an example. It could be many others.
Okay, and for the last question, from the point of view of an ethics professor and someone that has been studying the topic for a while, which would you describe as the purpose of human in life?
That's a good question. What is the purpose of humanity?
Of humanity,
Like
in
you
our
want me?
existence.
Yeah. So we want to my answer or what my take also on that one?
Yeah, from your own opinion, for your ethical opinion, from yourself based in ethical studies. Or you can give me your opinion and
Yeah,
the one of
sure.
ethical.
This again, this is a question that we ponder for centuries and millennia. They say, why are we here? There is a purpose for us to live life the way we live it or not. And there's a question 10 that I would say every single person that thinks about life will encounter and will reconcile and try to answer and get into terms, negotiate terms, how you're gonna get it or not. This is a way we need to do it, otherwise you get crazy, like saying, okay, if life is meaningless, so why I'm living, when I'm breathing, like it's no purpose. So I don't think that I know for sure there is a purpose in humanity. If I'm thinking it from the scientific method, I say, okay, we just happen to be life and we live in life just because we're an accident or whatever. So we're here and that's it. So there's no other purpose or other purpose.
Just existing.
Just exist and that's it. It was part of the universe. And if you believe from the divine point of view, the believing that existence had a purpose and somebody or somehow created, and humans, they do have like something to do on earth and in life or with life with others. So that would be like the complete opposite. So say, how can you reconcile? And I think that's a question, that's a pertaining question, and that's a valid question that we can do not every day but often, saying, okay, life is meaningless or life is meaningful.
Right.
And in between you can move in the spectrum, like sometimes maybe you feel like you're meaningless, sometimes you feel like you're meaningful, but you still need to ask the question. And I think that's a question that at the end you need to answer to yourself and saying, well,
It was my purpose.
yeah.
So,
Or not.
or not purpose. Do you think that humanity is actually taking a correct or an adequate path to the purpose?
That's what historians always ask. Because in humanity, what human history has taught us is that we always
Why are we in this way? Why are we making?
That's human nature. We always do wrong decisions. We always make wrong decisions. We always go the wrong path. And I think just for few people, you always have few people with a lot of privilege and a lot of people with no privilege a lot at all. So. And that's another question that you may have in life, like, okay, so if life is that, so what is the purpose of living life? So very few are having a lot of money and billions of people live in extreme poverty. So what is the point? And the question, to go back to the point you were asking, I think humanity, each generation makes decisions, and whether that generation, the leaders of the generation and the people led the leaders to make wrong decisions is going to be fault of it. You have the example of Germany with Hitler. You have the example with the French Revolution. You have the example voting for Donald Trump. So it's like each generation is responsible for what happens in your space and time.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, it's going to be good or bad. But that's why you look into the consequences. What's going to happen to my children or my great-grandchildren? So what's going to happen, what I'm doing right now, how it's going to affect them? And if I don't have kids, what's going to happen with the next generations?
I think that human race is always looking for the change, looking for a different consequence or a constantly question of what if. What would happen if, right? So maybe I end up with a lot more questions than I started with. When you are with an ethics professor.
When you're asking questions to yourself, you end up with more questions.
So thanks a lot for the interview and for the whole course. And
sure,
it's been an honor.
Thank you.
Adios.
Bye.
Now, it is time to talk about a little bit about the psychobiological foundation to understand how moral in humans work. As human beings, we are social animals. Our sociality is a result of evolution, not choice. Natural selection has equipped us with nervous systems which are peculiarly sensitive to the emotional status of our fellows. Among our kind, emotions are contagious, and it is only the rare psychopathic mutants among us who can be happy in the midst of a sad society. It is in our nature to be happy in the midst of happiness, sad in the midst of sadness. It is in our nature, fortunately, to seek happiness for our fellows at the same time as we seek it for ourselves. Our happiness is greater when it is shared. Nature also has provided us with nervous systems which are, to a considerable degree, imprintable. The human nervous system appears to retain its capacity for imprinting well into old age, and it is highly likely that the phenomenon known as at first sight is a form of imprinting. Imprinting is a form of attachment behavior, and it helps us to form strong interpersonal bonds. It is a major force which helps us to break through the ego barrier to create significant others, whom we can love as much as ourselves. These two characteristics of our nervous system's emotional suggestibility and attachment imprintability, also they are the foundation of all altruistic behavior on art, are thoroughly compatible with the selfishness characteristic of all behaviors created by the process of natural selection. That is to say, to a large extent behaviors which satisfies ourselves will be found simultaneously to satisfy our fellows and vice versa. So, given the general fact, then, that evolution has equipped us with nervous systems biased in favor of social rather than antisocial behaviors is not true. Nevertheless, that antisocial behavior does exist, and it exists in amounts greater than a reasonable ethicist would find tolerable. Alas, this is true, but it is true largely because we live in worlds far more complex than the Paleolithic world in which our nervous systems originated. To understand the ethical significance of this fact, we must digress a bit and review the evolutionary history of human behavior. Something that we are not going to talk about in this documentary. We only wanted you to know the general information about this topic. Today, heredity can control our behavior in only the most general of ways. It cannot dictate precise behaviors appropriate for infinitely varied circumstances. In our world, heredity needs help. With the evolution of humans, however, environmental complexity increases out of all proportion to the genetic and neuronal changes distinguishing us from our simian ancestors. Let's give you an example of how morals evolve and pass through our genes with another type of problem. Because in the past, our ancestors were originated in a time where the world was passing through a great climate flux, so as the ice ages, this change of environment created new problems to be solved. These problems created solutions that changed the environment, and so on. Then the discovery of fire led to the burning of trees and forests, which led to destruction of local water supplies and watersheds, which led to the development of architecture with which to build aqueducts, another solution. Then this led to laws concerning water rights which led to the international strife and on and on. So in morals, the transmission of moral behavior had a similar history. So if we could understand about all of this example and information, morals are something that is transferred by our genes, by our ancestors, as solutions to problems that we had in the past. In this case, to act as a society to help each other. And morals should evolve and adapt till the day that we will need it anymore, that is the time of our death.
The problem presented now is how an atheist can live an ethical, integral, and honest life. The general reasoning is usually that good and evil exist by themselves, regardless of God's will. Or say in a way that everyone understands, for example, killing and stealing would be wrong, even if God did not exist. This is generally accepted by believers themselves. Moreover, many of them privilege secular ethical arguments over religious ones, with the intention of creating broader agreements between believers and not believers. Thus, for example, it is common among proven Catholics to ensure that the defense of the right to live from conception to natural death is based on considerations of secular and even scientific humanism unrelated to any religious faith. Now, when we analyze the arguments that claim to base a secular ethic, things do not seem so simple. For the agnostic, there is at least a possibility that human beings are nothing more than a molecular accident, a random and ephemeral conjunction of atomic structures. From this point of the view, the only sense that morals seem to have is that it allows us to make our lives more enjoyable, not doing to others what we would not like them to do to us, which is the common golden rule. In short, be a more intelligent type of behavior than the nearsighted pursuit or immediate selfish interest. According to the divine theory, whose main actors are the different existing religions in the whole world, which are based on the belief that there is a God who communicates to us in many ways. For example, in the temple or church, such as the Catholic Church, epiphany, priests, and sacred texts like the Bible. All this brings a message from God. They can do things right or they can also do things wrong, because human beings behave according to satisfying or disturbing God. In the Catholic Church, there are 10 commandments which cannot be broken because God would not be happy. The 10 commandments are: the first, you will love God above all things. 2, you will not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. 3, you will satisfy the holidays. 4, you will honor your father and your mother. 5, you will not kill. 6, you will not commit impure acts. 7, you will not steal. 8, you will not give false testimony or lie. 9, you will not spoil impure thoughts or desires. 10, you shall not covet. As we can realize, most are commandments that are very suited to the good and bad things that a normal person, no matter if it's believer or non-believer, also considers good or bad. This is why we believe that people can be good and act ethically, morally, and honestly. So, 2. With the transmission of moral behavior, if we are to live lives which are as complex as our society is today and as complex technologically, we need something more than the 10 commandments. We cannot base our moral code upon arbitrary and capricious fights. Our ethics can be based neither upon fictions concerning the nature of humankind, nor upon fake reports concerning the desires of the deities. Our ethics must be firmly planted in the soil of scientific self-knowledge. They must be improbable and adaptable.